Great. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our first live stream of Travada AI. My name is Alex Krajewski, and I'll be helping Joseph with the Q&A portion of today's event. We're going to kick things off today by sharing a little bit about Travada, showing you a few prompts, and then we'll transition to the Q&A session. However, there is a widget at the bottom of your screen already, so feel free to drop any questions in there as we go. We'll go ahead and get started by introducing Joseph. He's the Chief Product Officer and Chief Technology Officer at Travada. He is also one of the founding members of the company and the first engineer. Before Travada, he worked with companies like Capital One, where he was at the forefront of digital transformation, leading product management as head of the innovation labs and mobile banking teams. Joseph is now driving innovation around rapid deployment and customer onboarding, bank-grade security, and machine learning at Travada. He's creating a more consumerized user experience for customers from small businesses to enterprises. Joseph, with that, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Alex. That was a very kind introduction. And thank you for everyone that has joined so far. I actually can't see you at the moment, but thank you and welcome to this live cast, which is the first we've ever done. I'm really excited and also kind of really nervous. I hope that this is going to be an enjoyable experience for everyone. And I thought that before we dig into AI and the promises of AI and how we've implemented AI at Travada, I just would give a quick refresh of what is it exactly that we do at Travada. And the way that we like to think of ourselves is a platform that is able to give you leverage when it comes to managing your cash across all of the different segments that are involved in managing your cash, whether that's having to deal with getting that data from the banks directly, or then taking that data, normalizing it, preparing it, and putting it in a format that is useful for the purposes of reporting or forecasting and other kind of finance-oriented functionality. And then finally, being able to act on that data, being able to move money and do all kinds of interesting things that will drive value for the business. And that's really where we have driven a lot of innovation, is by taking all of those steps and providing one platform that gives you leverage to do all of those things in a single place. And we're really excited today to talk about the topic of AI because we've spent the last 5 years really innovating on the automation of this kind of workflow, as well as creating user experiences that are beloved by our customers. And one thing that has constantly driven us is how can we continue to reduce the cognitive load of dealing with financial data and creating experiences that set us apart from not only our competitors, but also from anyone that is approaching the problem of financial analysis. And we, of course, have done the things that we're known for, whether it's building a cloud platform that is secure and that is globally redundant, or being the world leader when it comes to integrating with the best sources of data, like banking APIs, or being able to create an experience that is best in class from a user experience and UI perspective. Those are all things that we're really proud of. But today, we're talking about something that is completely different. And when we first approached the problem of AI a few years ago, we really put a lot of our focus into the problem set of how could we make it easier to discover insights that naturally occur in your data. And that was a majority of our focus, where we almost created an automation that attempts to create reports or insights that you might find yourself, but they would be so difficult to do over the data sets that you are managing that it'd be easier if a machine just identified those patterns. And that was kind of our first approach when it came to AI. And we made breakthroughs like finding the directionality of data, or finding natural categories in data, or even cleaning up the transaction description so that you could have a better transaction description, improving on what you get from the bank. But what happened recently, and of course, we're probably all very familiar with the first days of the public beta of ChatGPT when it first came to market. And if you were like me, I immediately downloaded apps that were built on top of ChatGPT, and I also signed up for ChatGPT on OpenAI's website to see what it could do. And what was breathtaking about its capability was this new possibility, this new creative arc of being able to converse with an interface that is fully capable of understanding all of the contexts that I could throw at it, whether that context was finance oriented, or it could be sports oriented, or it could be oriented in law, or it could be oriented in any topic under the sun, because it ultimately was trained on the vast data that it procured from the internet. And because of that vast data, it had specialization in so many different topics, which gave it the ability to understand and infer the intent of your question, which means that I can speak to it in natural language. I can make typographic errors. I can phrase a question in a way that is confusing, and it'll still know and be able to extract intent. Now, one of the things that we probably noticed as well as we were playing with the generative AI tools, whether it was ChatGPT or Bard on the Google front, was that they had this tendency to hallucinate, especially in cases where you want precision from the answer. Mathematical cases. For example, one of the most hilarious examples was having a conversation with the chatbot in ChatGPT and getting down to the point of asking it a simple question like, what is 2 plus 2? And we, of course, know that 2 plus 2 equals 4, but it might have said 2 plus 2 is 5, and it would be certain that 2 plus 2 is 5. And until you tell it, no, it's not 5, actually, I'm certain that it's 4, it would then apologize and say, oh, you're right, it is 4. And that would be a case of hallucination. And it would reduce our trust in its ability to do the things that we expect for any modern AI platform to do. So this is where we sat back in our seat at Trivata and wondered, is there a way that we could combine the impressive power of that natural language aspect of ChatGPT or any large language model, where you can throw any question at it, whether it's a basic question or a complex question, and it can infer the intent of what you're trying to ask. But we had to solve for the accuracy part of that equation, because in the context of Trivata, we're going to be asking it financial questions, and we don't want it to get the answer incorrect. Additionally, we don't want to be sharing any of the data that we have within Trivata with a ChatGPT LLM or any other LLM for that matter. And so the questions of how could we do that in a way that was accurate as well as private, while still getting the benefit of all of that intent matching that we're getting from that natural language question answering capability. And what we came up with is an interface that allows for us to take advantage of that natural language capability, while also exclusively and privately processing the answer to the questions that you're asking within Trivata's AI capabilities, and then displaying those results in a private experience that is only available to you within the Trivata platform, but never sent back to any LLM of choice, whether it's ChatGPT or Bard or any other experience that might be doing that natural language processing. And the experience we're really excited about, because it ultimately has created a brand new approach to how we are able to provide an interactive cash management experience for our customers. So I've switched from the deck, and this is the part of the presentation that I think everybody came to attend to see, which is the Trivata AI experience and how we've approached the experience itself. And as you can see, it is a chat-based user interface. And the idea behind it was really trying to reduce every possible cognitive barrier to interacting with your cache data. And the thought was this: we could build the most advanced user interfaces in the world with the prettiest charts and the most powerful search capabilities and the most powerful filtering capabilities. But isn't it the case that 100% of humanity knows how to ask what they're looking for? And if we could get to a point where anyone, regardless of their background, regardless of their skill set within a software experience, could simply ask what they're trying to find, would that not be the most ideal experience from a financial reporting perspective? And so that's what we're setting out to do with Trivata AI, and giving the best of Trivata within our AI experience while also reducing that cognitive load. And some of the ways that we've thought about how we could reduce that barrier is three primary categories that we've identified that Trivata AI is really great at. And the first one is actually my favorite. It's the needle in a haystack questions problem set, where you, to find the answers to these questions, would have to do a lot of work. Let's look at a simple example. Let's say that I want to find a particular transaction in my pile of data within Trivata. And just for context, I'm in a demo account right now, obviously, but it is intended to be very similar to a real production account that any customer might see. So in the spirit of that, let's look to see how many transactions I have. So it looks like I have over 1.7 million transactions in this instance across a variety of different banks with variety of levels of data supporting those transactions. And this is what the AI capabilities will have access to in order to answer these questions. So keep that in the back of your mind. We're searching over 1.7 million transactions. So let's take a look at an example. Let's say I want to find a single transaction. Maybe what was the largest spend transaction over the last 180 days? And let's see what it's able to come up with. So this question is interesting. There are a couple of things happening in this question. So the first is that it's a time-bound question. So it's trying to find over the last 180 days a particular transaction. I might have to actually refresh here. Apologies for that. I've been messing around with this prior to the demo quite a bit. Another thing about doing these things live, I am subject to the demo gods. What was the largest spend transaction over the last 180 days? Let's see if we can get it to give us a result. So while this is working, and I might actually have to log out here and log back in because I'm not sure when the last time I actually used it was. So just give me a moment here. I'll log back in and we'll start this demo again. Apologies for this delay. Let's jump back in here. And I might actually be a little zoomed out here. Let's see if I'm able to get the result this time around. All right. So in this question, we're looking for a needle in the haystack example where we're looking at 180 days worth of data, and it has to find a specific transaction out of that set. So it's looking for the largest one that happened across all of the transactions. It's not that difficult of a thing to do. You could do it within Trivata yourself. Of course, you could go into the transactions experience and you could start looking transaction by transaction. You could even sort it based on the largest transaction and find this kind of example. So this is a softball. And one of the crazy things about Trivata AI is that everything that it's doing is convertible into a query of some kind. And we're showing you the math ultimately almost from a query perspective. So you can see how did it arrive to that conclusion, right? So this is a softball question. So let's see if we can do something a little bit more complicated. Let's say we want to see an aggregate. So maybe we want to see what were the top 5 transactions over the last 365 days. So let's make it a little bit bigger. So in this case, very similar search, but instead of finding a single needle in the haystack, now it has to find multiple needles in a haystack and then compare that to other elements and put it together in a sensible format. And this is the kind of intuition that the natural language capabilities of this AI platform is able to do, because this is taking a complex question and converting it into a query that could identify that question. So let's keep getting even more complicated. Let's say we want to do something where it's a similar type of needle in the haystack approach, but how about we want to find an anomaly? So what was the most I always get this spelling wrong. The most anomalous transaction over the last 90 days. Let's see what's able to come up with in this example. So this one is a little bit more complicated than the last few questions because again, it's a time window. However, it has to perform a mathematical computation in order to arrive at the result. So in this context, it needs to tell us, well, how did you arrive at this particular answer? So it's going to tell us, well, over the last 90 days, we can calculate that average and standard deviation of the transaction and then find the transaction that deviates the most from the average, right? So that's how it came up with the answer to this question. This is where the power of LLM-based platforms really starts to shine because ultimately it needed to know, well, the context of the question that I'm asking is a financial context. So it needs to come up with a technique in order to come up with the answer to this question. So it came up with that technique and then identified that answer all within one motion. I did not need to give it any further context. It was all there, right? Okay, so let's see if we can do a similar approach. So instead of one needle in the haystack with a computation, let's try to find multiple in the same kind of computational experience. So how about, let's see, let me come up with one. What were the top 5, so similar to the other question, largest recurring transactions over the last year? Let's make it complicated. Probably should have tried this before the demo, but let's see what happens. So this one's really tricky because it's combining multiple things that we just did. It has to do a calculation. It then has to compute that calculation. It then has to provide an aggregate of that calculation, put it all inside of this response. Yeah, this one was a little trickier. So it's having a little bit of trouble showing this rendering. But this is actually a good opportunity for me to show in cases like this, we actually have this voting mechanism here that allows for you to tell us what happened in this particular scenario. So it resulted in an answer that could not be drawn on screen. We're actually collecting all of this feedback live, and we're using it to refine the platform and to give better and better answers for all of these various types of questions. And as you can see in this demo, I'm just winging it. And when we were talking about what would be the best way for me to demo this technology, it was to just act as if I'm one of you guys that's on this live cast and do it in a winsome way, do it in a way where I actually am just answering a bunch of random questions and seeing what the technology can do. Because at the end of the day, there's no way for us at the Travada a product team to test every possible case because we would literally have to ask millions of questions in order to identify all of the patterns. This is an example of one where it wasn't able to do this particular question, and maybe we could do it in a way where I could refine the question and make it a little bit less complicated, but let's move on. Let's move to another example, because in addition to needle in the haystack type answers, there are many other things that Travada AI can do. For example, it's able to do analytics. So let's say that I want to see, how about my average cash flow? So what was my average cash flow over the last 90 days? And maybe let's plot it on a daily chart. See what it's able to come up with on this one. So this actually is an analytics question. So it's doing a little bit different of an approach on this particular set. So it has to run a query where it's analyzing all of the cash that I have in this particular instance over the last 90 days. And then it's going to perform math on that because it's doing averages, right? So it's not the exact values of the cash flow, which of course would be spiking up and down because there would be credits and debits taking place. But instead, it's taking the average of those amounts and then plotting them over 90 days. So this was a multi-step motion from an analytics perspective to show me what I was trying to find. How about one where there is a principle behind the thing that I'm asking? A common one is cash burn. Let's see if we can ask it that. Can you show me my average, so this is a computation as well, cash burn, this is a financial principle, over the last 30 days. So window of time, calculation, and then an exact answer over the last 30 days, right? So it's able to do these types of complex calculations and perform exact answers on the thing that I'm looking for. Let's say that I wanted to see this in a chart. Let me see how I could break this out. Can you show me these values plotted in a chart over the last 30 days? So in this case, if it's able to do this, it's taking the context of my last question and plotting that into a chart where I can use this data for something else. This is super interesting because there's another area where Travada AI is providing significant value because it's keeping up with my conversation. So it knew that the last thing that I asked was a particular question that it was inferring cash burn as a financial principle. It knew that the time window was a very specific time window. It knew that it was doing a calculation. And now what I'm asking for it to do, and notice this is a very quick question. It's just take what you have and put it into a chart. I didn't say what kind of chart. I simply said plot it. And it was able to do that with basically no further input. Now, the data is here as well. So if I need to see the exact values that it is plotting in the chart and copy them out and put them into an Excel spreadsheet, I can do that. If I want to run this query and kind of arrive at the same conclusion, I can do that. And I can also see the chart, obviously. Well, let's say that I want to add one level further of analysis on top of this particular chart. Let's say that I want to do a really complex one. How about make a forecast of that for the next 30 days? So this one is a little crazy. Let's see what happens. I should do a drum roll. I hope it works. So of course, in this example, we're asking for it to take that data, and then it has to do ultimately something very complicated. It has to generate a forecasting strategy for this particular set of data. It then has to test that forecasting strategy against the data that was the actual data in terms of average cash burn over that period of time. It then has to forward predict that data over the period that we have specified. Then ultimately, it has to give it to us in a sensible format and plot it on this chart. Now, obviously, I did that for dramatic effect. I wanted to take a moment in this particular live cast to announce that we have actually added forecasting capabilities to Travada AI. And that's why it's able to do this particular task. This is a culmination of years of effort creating forecasting models that are able to do on-the-fly processing of any, really any data set that you could throw at it. In this case, I happened to throw a data set that was computed prior to it even forecasting. So it's even more advanced than the forecasting capabilities that you would be using in, for example, Travada in the forecasting module to generate forecasts on cash-based data. So this is a really exciting development in Travada AI because it's able to take the next leap in terms of what it can and can't do with regards to forecasting capabilities. And then finally, just to round this out, because I would love to have some time for questions here in a moment, is Travada AI is actually able to produce reports, financial reports that are useful and can save you time. And a common example of this is, let me choose one that's really annoying. Can you build a reconciliation report of my accounts over the last, let's do 30 days. So a large set of data. So in this case, the prompt is complex because first of all, it has to know what a reconciliation report looks like. And it has to go through its knowledge and figure out that the context of that will require certain types of data from various places in order to build this kind of report. Then it has to actually build the report and provide it to me in a way that I can use it. So here is that report. It's taking the net transactions and the net balances and telling me what the difference is across all of those accounts that I have within Truvada. And I can even further refine. If I wanted, for example, to see the opening and closing balances, I could do that. I could continue to refine that. But because we have only 4 minutes left and I feel like I'm probably getting pings of, hey, stop, we have questions. I'm going to stop just for a moment and see if there are any questions from the audience.
Thanks, JD. Yeah, we've got lots of questions coming in here. I think one that if you could just hit on again, I know you touched on it, but I think it's really important, the security aspect of this. We have lots of data going through this. Can you just touch again on how everyone's data is being protected if they use this?
Absolutely. So if we kind of start at the top of how this whole interaction played out within Truvada AI, the questions that are being asked are really the only thing ultimately that we are leveraging LLM for. So what happens under the hood in Truvada AI is that we package up this question and anonymize it in a way where the AI capabilities of ChatGPT or any LLM that is being used in the pipeline never actually knows anything about your data. They simply know essentially the phrase that you're asking to try to extract intent out of that particular phrase. It then responds with a specially curated context that we provide to their API. So the context that we provide is actually the question itself, which is anonymized and kind of extracted with any kind of identifiable information that is included in it. We then take it and provide it a little bit more information, which is, we want you to answer this question as if you are a financial professional. So that's the first layer of context that we give to the large language model. And the reason for that is because we don't want it to be using the entire context of every possible domain that it would have under the sun. We want to focus it to say, you're a financial professional, so only use the knowledge that you would have as a financial professional to answer this question. The last layer of context that we provided is information about how our database is structured. So not the contents of the database, but the structure of the database. And the reason for that is so that it knows, hey, Truvada has transactions data. It has names of accounts. It has currencies. It has descriptions. It has information about the amounts of these transactions. So when it is coming up with an answer, it knows that these are the weapons, if you will, of answer types that I could leverage to answer this particular question that has this particular intent. This gets packaged up on the fly, and the resulting answer that comes back from the large language model is a query. It's actually a SQL query. And that is what is presented here on every single question that has an answer to it. That query is run privately in your Truvada instance. And the resulting answer to that query is presented privately within the Truvada experience and never sent back to OpenAI or any other large language model. So really, it's a one-directional experience with regards to that large language model. All that it can do is say, here's what I think you're trying to answer with that question, and here is how I would go about answering it if I had your database. And then we say, thank you very much. We'll take that query. We'll run it on our AI analytics platform, which is private to your data. We will generate the answer, and that answer will then be presented privately within your Truvada experience. Privacy is extremely important with regards to this experience, because this is all financial data of the most important nature, right? We don't want this data to ever leave your instance. So the experience is locked in a way where it can only ever be presented within your experience, and that session data is locked to your experience. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for going over that again. I know we're coming up on time, but we're having so much fun answering questions. Feel free to stick around for a few more minutes while we get through some of these. The next one here is, can you write your own SQL query against the Travada data, like the ones the AI produced?
Yes, you can. Obviously, in this experience here in Travada AI, you can't do that. But we have an API platform where that kind of experience would definitely be useful. One of the things that is really amazing about the Travada AI experience is because it's able to generate these complex queries, you're able to use them for almost a shortcut to the types of queries that you would want to do to answer some of these questions. This is an area that we're actually really excited about, and it's where we are going to continue to push the boundaries of our own searching capabilities within the Travada platform, giving users the ability to enter in those types of queries directly within our search bar and be able to do things that you might not be able to do if you were to just set up filters and create a query using our user experience. So we're really excited about that aspect of the Travada experience.
Another one here related to that, how much will these queries and results rely on the accuracy and details of our own tags within Travada versus just the underlying bank data?
That's what's one of the magical pieces of all of this, is that the Travada AI experience is built on our brand new Travada TQL, Travada Query Language platform, which does not require your tags. You're actually able to ask it any question on any topic, and it will be able to impute the answer to that question. So let's say, show me the average amount for all transactions over the last 30 days that had ACH in the description. In the past, you might have created a tag that would capture the ACH detail information in the description. In the Travada TQL experience, you're actually able to just tell it, hey, I want that specific item. And it's able to know you're looking in descriptions only. You want the text string ACH. And in this case, Travada AI is taking it one step further and doing some math for you. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah. I have another one here related to free cash flow. Can you ask the system to project free cash flow over X number of years, as well as depict that in a chart?
Yes, we showed an example of that in a variation, of course. But again, you can actually ask it to project on any set of data. So if you wanted to do free cash flow as the originating topic, you would ask for it to do, hey, show me my free cash flow over a period of time, and then simply ask it, can you now forecast that? And then tell it how long you want to forecast it. Now, as with any forecast, and I need to give this warning and this caveat, data in, data out, right? So if there isn't a high level of quality to the data that it's forecasting on top of, and in this case, you said multi-year forecast, which of course will never be accurate without a very importantly kind of backed data set, whether it's cash data or other types of data, you're going to get varying results with regards to the accuracy of that forecast. So I'd say that shorter forecasts will be tighter, longer term forecasts will have a lot more deviance and standard deviation.
My question here just about the process to get this up and loading. How long did it take you to train this model? Was this 3-month project, 1-year project? What did that look like for Travada?
That's a great question. And I think that one of the things that we're most proud of is that our AI journey has been a collection of experiences. And I'm not going to say that Travada AI is the culmination of that journey, but it's an example of what happens when you invest in foundational platforms like search, like categorization, like being able to impute predictive modeling, forecasting, those types of AI capabilities. And because we have the collection of those Lego pieces that we've developed over the last 4 years, really, we're able to put them all together in an experience like Travada AI, where it's building on top of something like a large language model. Now, of course, there's no training happening here with regards to that large language model. It is very much using a third party. It's using, in this case, ChatGPT-4 in order to take advantage of their large language model for inferring intent, right? But it is not coming up with the answers to those questions on top of your data. We still had to build all of the capabilities that are able to analyze in such free-form nature all of your transactions and balances and the nature of your data. So it's actually a collection of things that came together in order to build this technology. And while we were able to do the actual user interface of Trivata AI fairly quickly, it took years to build all of the supplementary platforms that power it.
Well, we have another one here. Is there a way to exclude cash sweeps from the query? For example, if I sweep excess cash into an interest-bearing account, I want to exclude all of those ins and outs and isolate actual business, customer, vendor, etc. transactions.
Of course. All of the prompts, it's just like any other chat GPT prompt, where the more specific that you are, the more context that you give it, the more precise it will be with regards to what you would like for it to do. Of course, the very same things can be accomplished with regards to performing those types of queries within our search experience. So if there are specific things that you want to include, like let's say that, from a text perspective, you don't want the text to contain a particular thing. You can, provide that kind of intent in the search query. And in the same way, Trivata AI is leveraging the same backend with regards to searching capabilities. So if you give it the very same prompt, it will be able to do those types of exclusions. One of the things to keep in mind is logical accuracy. So creating a logical statement that actually makes sense. So that is one of the things that you might have to play with in terms of the tweaking of that statement, but it is definitely possible.
Awesome. Another question, kind of more broad about Trivata. Can Trivata export to Excel for any of this data? We noticed some data on the screen, but of course it would be large volumes. So it would be very helpful if we had that feature.
Absolutely. So wherever you see a table, it can be copy pasted out of Trivata. So, if you're in any particular feature and you want to export data, we have these grids all throughout the product that let you take a set of data and export it. So let's say I wanted to take, these transactions that occurred over this period of time and export them. I can simply click that grid. It'll prepare those transactions and load them into an Excel friendly format. And I can either copy them directly out of this tab and paste them into an Excel workbook, or I can download it as a CSV file or in an Excel file if that is the format that you're looking for. And it's really intended to be as simple as that. Anywhere where you see a table within Trivata, you can either copy or download that data set.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I know we went a few minutes over, so I think we'll have to wrap up here, but we have some more detailed questions sitting in this widget right now. We can reach out to you after this call and get back to you. But JD, if people want to learn more about this, what should they do?
Oh, I'd say please schedule a demo. We would love to show you not just Trivata AI, but the rest of the platform and how it can really give you leverage in your daily reporting and cash management. And you can do that on our website at trivata.io by clicking on book a demo today.
Awesome. I also dropped that link in the chat, so feel free to connect with us that way. Thanks again for everyone for joining. We hope to see you at our next virtual event on August 23rd, where we'll discuss streamlining cash management with an API-powered multi-bank platform. And of course, if you're not already following us on Trivata, connect with us on LinkedIn so you don't miss any of our content. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.